Welcome back to the Paranormal Girl Podcast. I am your host, Kristen. As promised, I've got something a little different prepared for you guys today. Something a little out of my wheelhouse, you might say. My guests left me completely fascinated with the topic that we are discussing today. And they just left me wanting to know more. So I'm so excited to share this with you guys. Before we get to this fascinating conversation, next week, you guys, next week, I have once again been invited by the tenacious, the intelligent, the brutally curious, the gobsmackingly professional Christina Gomez to join her on her new live stream show, Top 5. Top 5. You may have previously seen me on her show, Shifting the Paradigm, or on her show, Strange News Weekly. She puts out a lot of good shows. If you have not seen either of those episodes, never fear. I've got links for both in the show notes for you to easily access, and it will take you over to YouTube. And while you're over on YouTube, sub to her channel. I'm telling you, you're going to want to. Some of the guests that she has had on in the past, oh my gosh, so good. She has been joined by the likes of Mike Ricksecker, Avi Loeb, Lou Elizondo, Brandon Fugel, and Kristen Amanda. Just a bunch of us heavy hitters and experts in the field, just chilling together over there. No biggie. I don't have imposter syndrome in the slightest, just so you know, okay? But yes, I will be live streaming with Christina. That show is airing Tuesday, April 25th, 3 p.m. Pacific. That is 3 p.m. Pacific and 6 p.m. Eastern. I will put the link up on my socials for you to tune in and watch, but just save the date, my friends. Save the date. You know how easy it is to forget, get caught up with other things. I get it. I got you, but save that date. Let's do a quick shout out to our friends over at Manscaped, and then we are going to get to my guests. The leaders in men's below-the-waist grooming have already helped you tidy up all the nooks and crannies of your body's basement, but this year, Manscaped can help you get the perfect presentation on that beautiful face with the new Beard Hedger Pro Kit. Make sure you look your best this spring by using code PNG to get 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com. My partner recently stocked up on his beard shampoo. He loves the stuff, but you would think that the aliens were invading soon with how much he got. I mean, I don't know. I don't know. Maybe it's coming. They're coming, and he is going to be entirely prepared to fight the Zeta Reticulans in style, yo. Something that he really appreciates about the beard shampoo is that it is paraben-free. And this is something that he would take into consideration anyway with any hygiene product. It's very important to him. Parabens can cause a lot of damage, and the beard shampoo is free of them. Yay! It's also sulfate-free. It is dye-free. It has been dermatologically tested for sensitive skin, along with all of the other formulations that are included in the kit. And it's a really good choice for someone who takes these kinds of things into consideration, for someone who thinks about their beard health. So I just wanted to highlight that, but also scents can play a big role in our choices, especially with something that is being applied so close to your snoot, right? The beard shampoo scent is very nice. And I think I have spoken to this before, but it bears repeating. It is scented with eucalyptus, rosemary, and lavender essential oils. Ooh, sounds like it smells nice, right? Lee and I both, I know this, in the past, in our dark, dark past, we have used products too close to our snoots that would just make your eyebrow hairs stand straight up or jump off your face and fall off. But the shampoo, it's subtle, it smells fresh, and it smells clean. Just simple. Love it. So, just some of the things that you can consider if you have never tried any of the formulas, you haven't yet tried them, or if you were thinking about trying some of those formulas or the shampoo, this is your sign. This message was meant to find you. Ooh! So go give it a try and save 20% off and get free shipping when you use code PNG at manscaped.com. That is 20% off and free shipping at manscaped.com by using code PNG at checkout. Focus on the face and use the Beard Hedger Pro Kit for the cleanest look in the game. Today, I am joined by the hosts of the Bigfoot Influencers Podcast, Tim and Dana Halloran. Their show, airing weekly on the Untold Radio Network, explores and deep dives the Bigfoot phenomenon and is complementary to the book, The Bigfoot Influencers, written by Tim. Within this publication and on their show, you will find compelling and entertaining conversations with notable influencers in the Bigfoot community, such as Dr. Jeff Meldrum, David Ellis, Les Stroud, and Ron Moorhead. Whether you are an enthusiast or a seasoned investigator, there's something for everyone in the Bigfoot Influencers. Please enjoy my conversation with Tim and Dana Halloran.
I'm Dana, and I'm probably the one who got us all started in this in the beginning. I've always been super interested in the subject. Tim and I have 4 boys, and there was a period of time where I was, staying at home and really focused on our youngest, who we used to just sit around and watch Finding Bigfoot and be really super excited about it. And I'm thinking, you know what, Gabriel, one day we're going to go on an expedition. We're going to go on a Bigfoot conference. We're going to do all this stuff. And so, obviously that didn't happen right away. But eventually I convinced him to take me to a Bigfoot conference. And we just basically just kind of like just oozed into everybody. Like, we just really connected well with everybody. We made some great friends, actually got to meet Dr. Jeff Meldrum on that. And it was just crazy how, because he was like my rock star, like man crush.
So maybe,
or let's say professor crush, right?
Maybe explain who.
Because you're my man crush, baby.
But explain who Dr. Meldrum is.
So Dr. Jeff Meldrum is probably the leading, most well-known researcher, Bigfoot researcher in the country. He's a professor at Idaho State University. He teaches anthropology. He specializes in bipedal locomotion. So he's like a serious dude. You'll see him on a lot of Bigfoot documentaries.
He's the academic when it comes to the he's the face of academia in Bigfoot now. Yeah.
Right.
I guess would be the way. Yeah.
Definitely. That's a great way to put it, baby. Thank you. So here we are. We arrived at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, and, we rented a cabin, but we had to go into the lodge to check in. And so I'm just so excited to be there. Okay. And, Tim's like, whatever, because he's not that into it. And so we're standing in line to go check in, and I see Dr. Jeff checking in too. Oh my God. I mean, it's like, just imagine like the most famous person that you just absolutely love and think is so awesome, and seeing them. So I'm like, oh my God, Tim, oh my God. Don't move. He's like, what?
Don't move.
I'm like, it's Dr. Jeff.
And I don't care. I mean, I'm like, yeah, whatever.
He's like, I'm going to go over and talk to him. And I'm like, no, don't. Because Tim is like just so bold. And so he goes over and he starts talking to him. And so, yeah. So then I go over and I'm like, oh my God, I'm your number 1 fan, like some crazy psycho girl. And he's like, okay. But later
I'm sure
on,
he didn't mind. I wouldn't mind.
oh,
Yeah,
he's so cool. He's like the coolest dude ever. And so then we just got led into like getting to know everybody else. We got invited to this exclusive VIP party where Cliff Barrickman was there from Finding Bigfoot, and Bobo as well. And Dr. Jeff was there too. And so we just kind of really got to know everybody on a human level and just got to hear like, I got to like hang out with Dr. Jeff on the porch of this party. It was like talking to God and asking him anything you ever wanted to know about Bigfoot. And it was awesome. So during that trip to Ohio,
right, yeah.
to the conference, Tim got a good taste of what Bigfoot is all about. Bigfoot is not a joke. Bigfoot is not a dude in a beef jerky commercial. These things really exist. And so that's how I got into the subject. And how about you, Tim? Why don't you tell everybody about you?
Oh yeah. So hey.
Oh, yeah, he exists.
Yeah,
Okay.
follow that, Tim.
I know what I mean. How do I follow that? I don't know if I can. So yeah. Well, I'm Tim for the audience who probably hasn't figured it out yet, but they have. Yeah. So it was. I think that event, like everyone, you see the famous footage that was filmed in October of 1967, called the Patterson-Gimlin film. And I think everyone has seen that in the world, and it's the most famous Bigfoot footage there is to date, and actually probably most people think the most authentic one. But beyond that, I was always open-minded, but wasn't really my thing. I was like, okay, this is cool, but whatever. So yeah, we get to this conference, and I think what got me, Kristen, was we're sitting there, we're listening to these speakers, and there's a bunch of wonderful speakers there, and listening to Dr. Jeff Meldrum was like, I said, wow, there's actually a scientist, with a PhD who studies this. And I said, well, and listening to him, he's so articulate and so educated about the subject, and it's his specialty. I said that I scratched my head. I said, wow, if there's a scientist involved with this, maybe there's something to this whole Bigfoot thing. And then some of the other speakers that were there, again, someone like a Cliff Barrickman, who's so detail oriented, and he spent his good portion of his life studying footprints and casting footprints and just educating the public and enthusiasts about this. It just got me into it. So that's kind of how we started.
Yeah. And I'm just going to add one little thing about the footprints. And I think that's probably the most compelling evidence that I think we really started to understand when we started delving into this subject is that like one of those questions that I asked Dr. Jeff, I said, like when I felt like I was asking God questions, was I asked him, I said, so Dr. Jeff, do you really believe in the existence of Bigfoot? And he said to me, believing is something that you have to do when you don't have evidence. It's like faith, when you don't have, but these footprints make me know that there is something out there making these footprints. And from these footprints, they can estimate size, weight, individuals. These footprints that are being made are not fake. They have dermal ridges. They have particularities that a person couldn't fake, like even a podiatrist couldn't fake. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, when it comes down to it, there's something out there making the footprints.
Yeah. Yeah. I gotta say, Dr. Jeff's interview, you guys got to talk to him on your show. One of my all-time favorite episodes so far that I've listened to, you guys. He is absolutely fascinating. I get what you're saying, Dana. It's like it is. It's like listening to God, or it's an expert, in the field, and the fact that he is so smart and so academic, and it is not about belief anymore for him. He knows, and and we're talking about the footprints. The part of the interview where he is going into detail, into depth about these footprints. And I've just never thought about it that deeply before, that there are all of these ways that you can, cast the footprint and see, designate it, aside from or apart from like a prankster, doing the same thing, just putting footprints in there to, I don't know, lead people off into the woods for no good reason. But there are specific details to these footprints
that are very compelling, like the dermal ridges, and him just going into like, yeah, this part is flat because of this, and there's like the, the bend, that's like that's very important
Mid-tarsal
to,
break, what they call
yeah,
it, yeah.
yeah. So that was a fantastic episode. You guys have
Cool.
some really incredible guests on the show throughout, though. I couldn't believe it as I was just listening, going through. I'm like, holy cow, Eli Watson. Like I've heard of Small Town Monsters. I've heard of that, and Les. Oh gosh, I can't remember the other one.
Les Stroud.
Yeah. I'm so sorry, but yeah, talk about your guests that you've had thus far to date. Like, who've been some of your favorites? Maybe some cool stories, something just.
Maybe I'll start, Kristen, on and I feel bad. I don't know.
Because there's so many awesome people that we've interviewed. Yeah, it's so hard.
I don't mean to be overwhelming with the question.
Well, I was fortunate because I was fortunate enough that many of I think when we started off the podcast, I already had interviewed a good group of them in the book. So they already trusted me. They already knew our style, and they knew it was, I hate to say it was easy, but it's kind of easy to get them on podcasts. And I know there's some people out there that have a challenge getting in touch with some, but just because I already knew who they were, we already had rapport. Some of our friends, and it was easy to get them because they already agreed to be in the book. So there's like, Eli was not in the first book, and Eli's great. Eli's a lot of fun.
And something I have to say about Tim is a great connector. He is amazing at connecting with people. He follows up with people. He just clicks with people. And I think I'm pretty good too. Like, I'm friendly and chatty and everything like that. But just Tim has a really good way of finding out how to connect to people. He wrote the book. And Tim, if you want to show his book real quick, Kenny.
Sure.
Tim wrote the book.
Pitch.
I did not write this book, okay? But from going to these conferences and seeing how many different types of researchers there was no kind of nothing, not a website, not a book, nothing where kind of like Tim has like basically like a reference of everybody who's doing everything in the world of Bigfoot. And so that was something that was really cool. And so we took from his book, we're doing the podcast. And it's the same thing. We are not the influencers. We are interviewing the influencers. And yes, we are involved in going to conferences, and there probably is an expedition in our future as soon as I learn how to sleep outside. Which we're going to try this weekend. I mean, we're outdoorsy. Yeah. Like, we love hiking and just being outside and traveling and all that stuff. But like, sleeping outside is like a whole different ballgame.
For you, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
For me.
I grew up in Montana. It's overrated, but
okay,
I wish you luck.
I'm going to try it. But so you were saying.
Oh, yeah. Kristen asked some of our favorite.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Les Stroud was pretty cool. I mean, because Les Stroud, so the interesting about Les Stroud is Les Stroud's, everybody in the book, not everybody, but most of the folks in the book are around the subject of Bigfoot. And if, like, Cliff Barrickman will tell you, he told us, he said, what's nice, Cliff says, I can go to the grocery store and nobody knows who I am. So he can get away from that public eye. But once he's in the Bigfoot world, everybody knows who's Cliff. He's humongous.
Right.
But Les was the one person that pretty much is probably bigger outside of the Bigfoot world than he's inside the Bigfoot world. So
though he did do a couple of
he has his
documentaries about Bigfoot.
Yeah, he has Survivor Man Bigfoot.
Right.
So he is still big in the subject, but he's bigger. He's big outside the subject too. So he's more of a household name for those who are not Bigfoot enthusiasts. So Les was cool, and I think Les interview was really cool for me.
It was really easy too, because Les is used to being on television. He's used to keeping his answers short. He's used to like squeezing in as much goodness in one answer. So he was really easy in that sense. But for some surprises, like for me, I was surprised how much I liked Ron Moorhead. So Ron just for your audience, Ron Moorhead is a researcher who, I guess he's most famous for his Sierra Sounds recording, which is some Bigfoot chatter, which is totally freaky.
From 1971 or 72, I think it was.
And
So,
I mean, the crazy thing for me as somebody who taught English as a second language and also speaks another language fluently, you could just tell it's a language.
They're
It's not just
communicating.
somebody going, blah, 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 blah. Do you know, like,
Mhm.
and the sounds that are being made are just sounds that don't even seem like a human could make them out of all the crazy languages around the world. So, and also Ron is just like a really cool person. And he does delve into Bigfoot being not so much a biological creature as maybe a paranormal creature that can
Oh.
kind of come in and come out of possibly I don't know, wormholes
yeah,
or
quantum physics, he thinks.
yeah.
Not warm, yeah, maybe, but
So not a lot of people in the Bigfoot world agree with him.
Okay.
but he's well respected.
He is well
throughout with everyone,
respected.
yeah.
And so I think that he was probably my most eye-opening interview.
Yeah, and we've had a lot of fun ones too. I mean,
Yeah.
gosh, I mean, just fun ones. Diane Stocking was fun.
Yeah, she was fun.
She's been around for a long time.
Yeah.
And there's not a lot of female. I mean, it's still a man's world. And I'm going to say as a man, it's just if you look around, and there's more. I think it's
Right.
exciting to see more. But there's a lot of female researchers and individuals that some are passed away that have been around for a long time, have been into this subject for 20, 30 plus years, and so it's refreshing to see that. But it's so Diane's was fun because she's kind of no BS with her,
Right.
and then
Right.
she worked through all that and raised kids and is out there and just had a lot of fun interviewing. It's hard to say. I
It
think
is hard.
we
Even the guys
Yeah.
out in Area X.
oh my gosh,
I
yeah,
mean, there's just so much.
we could go on and on. Every single interview has been great. So
Oh gosh. Okay. I'm so glad that you said that. I was trying to think. I was like, what was I going to ask him that was really important? Area X is mentioned a couple of times throughout the podcast. I have never heard of this before. Would you tell us about that? What is that?
you want me to start?
Yeah, I
So there's an organization. So in the Bigfoot community or the world, there's different research groups. The most famous research group is the Bigfoot Field Researchers Organization, the BFRO, which was founded by Matt Moneymaker. And that was groundbreaking. I mean, he created and that's still the standard. But then there's other groups out there too. And there's other groups that don't really they have different purposes. And there's a group in Southeast Oklahoma, Northeast Texas called the North American Wood Ape Conservancy.
And those are the people who are involved in Area X.
Right. Yes.
Mhm.
So they get out in the woods and they had 3 research areas, and they just, for some reason, they did X, Y, and Z. That's why it came Area X. So it's really cool. It just happened to be X. So Area X is a place in the I'm going to pronounce this wrong, the Ouachita Mountains in southeast Oklahoma, and very rural.
Really hard to get to.
Yeah, maybe they feel maybe the most rural place in the East Coast.
Yeah, like you literally need like a 4-wheel drive vehicle in order to get there. There's no
Wow.
cell phone service, no electricity, no running water.
So so Area X. So Area X is the area where they've had the most activity. So they focus a ton of their activity, the North American Wood Ape Conservancy, or the NAWAC. And they'll go into that area, and they have teams that go in for 6 or 7 weeks or longer.
But
Maybe
each
12.
team stays for about a week.
Mhm.
So their idea behind this was to always have someone there.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, because a lot of sightings occur with hikers, fishermen, hunters. They're out there, they see a Bigfoot. I mean, your chances of seeing a Bigfoot another time in your life is basically like getting struck by lightning twice.
Yeah.
Do you know what I mean? It's just
Yeah.
not going to happen. So these guys wanted to diminish those odds in an area where they were getting frequent sightings. So they came up with a plan that between May and November, or May and October, they would have at least one team of people there for 1 week, and then the next team would come in. That way they would always have people in that area for a span of 6 months. And so over those 6 months, they have activity.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, there's some weeks that go by
Mhm.
where there's no activity, but there's some pretty crazy stories, especially from
Daryl or Kathy.
Kathy.
Yeah.
Yeah. Kathy Strain was on our podcast, and you guys can still listen to that episode. And Kathy's experience, she actually saw 2 of them, chased them.
Mhm.
And she wasn't the only person that saw them, because there were other people there. They were sitting around the fire pit. And but she was the crazy one who actually got up and ran after them.
Oh, wow.
They were probably like one was like a teenager, maybe one was a little smaller. But
they're relating to, she thinks it wasn't a full adult. So
right.
yeah.
But I mean, just like the stories that come out of there is just like rock throwing, growling, vocalizations,
Just a ton. Yeah.
ton of. That's my goal. My
the
goal
area
is to get used to sleeping outside and
get used to rocks being thrown at you.
Yeah.
well, we're gonna be sleeping in my Jeep
Yeah.
Oh.
because I'm not sleeping in a tent. We're just gonna like convert the Jeep into like,
yeah.
and then we can like have lunch and eat and cook in the tent. But at nighttime, my butt is gonna be in the Jeep.
You're like click, yeah.
Because there's also like mountain lions and bears there, and you're in the middle of nowhere. So like basically, I think they said you have to drive about 2 hours before you get cell service.
Something like that.
I mean,
yeah.
it's pretty crazy, girl. Something happens, and I mean, there's a satellite phone, but who's coming to get you? So,
Yeah.
but that would be my fate. And we've been invited.
Mm-hmm.
I would love to do that. But yeah, so just the stories that come out of there are just amazing.
Yeah, we've had a
Yeah.
few, few of them were in the book. Kathy and Bob Strain, Daryl Collier, Matt Pruitt, who's a good friend of
Mhm.
ours and helped me with the book. If it wasn't for Matt Pruitt, I probably wouldn't have written the book.
He's a cool dude.
And then we interviewed Mike Mays, who's not in the first book, but he'll be in the second book.
Mhm.
And yeah, it's just when you hear these individuals, I think say, for example, if there's 100 individuals involved actively in that group, I think this is what scratches my head. Why would there be 100 people, and I'm just throwing that number out, that would spend time and money to go down to this area and research if they really didn't, why would they, you couldn't get 100 people to do that if there wasn't something out there going on,
Yeah. If there's no there.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. Well, so Dana, you mentioned, things like rock throwing, things like the chatter, things like, the footprints that you can see. What, how would somebody know that they're having an actual encounter rather than, there's just a bear rustling around in the brush over there or something?
Because I think that happens a lot. There's misidentification. You see like a large furry brown thing off in the distance.
Mm-hmm.
And I think the thing that sticks out for us from listening to even witnesses' stories is that it's walking on 2 feet.
Mm-hmm.
I think that's the thing. The bipedal thing is just the thing that I think sticks out for most people is, yes, bears can walk on 2 feet because, we've all seen them do that in the circus or trying to like get, honey out of a beehive from a tree. We've seen them do that. But to like walk like a long distance as they're running away to get away. So I think that's definitely the thing that sticks out most. And also like in going to these conferences, I can remember Dr. Jeff Meldrum doing a little seminar where he was trying to teach everybody the difference between a bear and a Sasquatch. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Or the difference between a moose and a Sasquatch.
From a footprint standpoint.
And also from what they look like. Do obviously bears have like a long nose. Okay. Sasquatches do not. They have more of a face like us or like any other primate, like a flat face. And there's just certain like details about a Sasquatch that you need to be on the lookout for. But hearing from most of our witnesses and researchers, like I said before, the thing that sticks out is the fact that they're on 2 legs, the fact that they are so large. So 8-9 feet tall. And the fact that they're very elusive.
I think also for someone who made one, going back to the rock throws, Kristen, is what throws rocks? And sometimes they're fist-sized rocks. We just had Todd Prescott on our show last week, this past week, and yeah, what can throw a fist-sized rock? There's not much out there. I don't think there's anything. Even a bear doesn't throw rocks.
I
They
don't
don't have
think
they
we
don't
have
have what they
anything.
call,
Yeah.
they don't have thumbs. So
Disposable funds. Yeah, I don't think there's anything in North America, any animal
it's either a human or a
or a Sasquatch.
Yeah, it's got to have that the
Mhm.
ability to grab it. Yeah.
And throw
And
too.
launch it. Yeah.
Yeah, like I don't think that raccoons do that. Do you know? And even
Right.
like these rocks are like huge rocks. Do you know?
Mhm.
So
Mhm.
what's throwing the rocks? A
Right.
person
Right.
that's out in the middle of Oklahoma that you have to get to by a 4-wheel drive
and not
Mhm.
knowing
and have no cell
yeah,
service.
not knowing if the people that you're throwing rocks at have guns and might shoot you.
I mean,
Right.
who's doing that?
Yeah, those are things that are wild. The audio, I guess, it's owls make weird noises, coyotes, fox, but a lot of there's audio specialists too that will study the sounds, and they can rule out, David Ellis is one of them that we've had on the show, Kenny Brown, the individual that studied the Sierra sounds is a cryptolinguist. He worked for the Navy, and they've studied this audio, and they there's nothing in the database of anything in North America that makes these sounds. So
Yeah.
that's something else. If someone's out that, if if it's a howl or a whoop or the chatter, there's just hopefully, I'm not sure if I'd be thrilled if I heard that.
I think it's distinctive when you have that experience.
Yeah.
Like
yeah.
even like I'm not really up on the, ghost phenomenon. I
Mhm.
don't really know much about it, but I mean, I would think it's pretty clear that if you've like taken the batteries out of your Elmo doll and it continues to talk, that
Mhm.
that's a ghost. Do you know what I mean? Like, I think I saw that on some documentary or something. I was like, oh yeah, I would be out of that house. So it's like,
right.
I think it's pretty clear when you roll up on a Sasquatch. Yes, I'm sure there are definitely moments of misidentification.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think, and then I guess the other thing that stands out is people feel we hear a lot that they feel like they're being watched, and their hair stands up, or they get the feeling of the other feeling
Dread.
of like what they don't know what's related to. They say could be something related to infrasound possibly, but they get this feeling of I got to get out of here. Something's not right here, and they just want to leave. And we hear that a lot from people we talk to. So that's interesting too. And I've never had an experience out in the woods, obviously.
So why don't you explain to everybody what infrasound is?
Sure, I'll do
All
that.
right, go ahead.
So infrasound is, I guess there's some animals that have it. Lions, elephants have infrasound, and it's a sound that emits that we can't hear from our audio or from the way ours are here, but it's more of a, how would you explain it?
Like a vibration.
A vibration, and it just I think some predator animals use it to stun their prey, to give them a few seconds to get on, attack them,
Yeah, like I don't know if you've ever watched those shows where it's like a show that used to be really popular where like they're like, I think it's like, I'm not trying to like pick out any country in particular, but I think it's like Japanese whalers, and then there's these like Greenpeace guys that are trying to like save the whales, and then the Japanese like have like this big like bullhorn thing that emits this sound that we can't hear, but it makes us feel sick.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, there's
Okay.
an actual, I mean, I think they've done this before at some embassy, I think in the Caribbean, where an American embassy was attacked with this type of, I can't remember the name of it, but it's something similar.
The military, there's been militaries that have studied, and I guess maybe law enforcement, how to use infrasound for crowd control too.
Right. So it's not a sound. So a lot of witnesses have experienced not, or just feeling dread, or they shouldn't go any further.
Kathy Strain,
Diane Stocking.
Yep.
And this is like a hardcore bad mama jamma. Okay. She's not like a Dana who's afraid to sleep out in the woods. Girlfriend is like fierce and strong, afraid of nothing. And she was investigating a witness sighting. and was walking down a path or a road or something, if I remember, and all of a sudden just got this dread feeling. And she decided to turn around, which is like,
Oh,
what? Because this is
okay.
the girl that you
Yeah.
want with you when you're in a bar fight. Do you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying? So when she said that, I was like, okay. So that's something else that people mention.
Okay. Yeah. That's really interesting. When you said people feel dread, I was like, oh wow, well, that's something else I have never heard. But I have heard plenty of stories where people talk about this very unwelcome feeling when they think that they're
Mhm.
having an encounter, and they're just like, ooh, yeah, the being watched, and I am not welcome here, and I should scoot.
Mhm.
Wow. It reminded me actually of a story. You guys probably know it. I think it was out in West Virginia. This first date, this guy and girl went on the river there, and somehow the rapids got real bad, and they were thrown in the water, and she was getting pulled down, and he caught up to her and like threw her up onto a rock to like save her. And he crawls up on the rock after her. And then this big splash in the water next to him draws his attention up to the bank, and he sees what he describes as a gigantic, massive Sasquatch with picking up another rock, and it looks mad, real mad. He talks about it later that it thought that he was trying to hurt her, the woman, when he tossed her up on the rock. And
Mhm.
so he, like, thinking quickly, the thing in the background is like raising the rock, and thinking quickly, he's like, hug me real quick. And she does. And then it dropped the rock and walked away. But
Hmm.
just the
Wow.
throwing of the rock, the whole experience. But yeah.
That's interesting. That's
Yeah.
interesting. I don't
Yeah.
think, though, that if you ask me, I don't think the Bigfoot cared or not whether he was speaking,
Maybe, yeah.
because they just don't want us around.
They don't
I
want
was-
anything to do with us,
yeah.
right?
There was and I haven't looked into it. There was a report where someone was saved. He saw a baby. He claims he saw a baby one, a Sasquatch. I was just listening to this the other day, and he picked it up because there's a cougar wanting to attack it, and he picked it up to save it, and he had it in his arms. And then, again, I don't know how valid this story is, but then he hears noises in the background, and I guess the mother Sasquatch came through, and she was appreciative of him because he saved the baby, and she took the baby from him and comforted the I don't know I think it was a hunter, I'm not sure, but I got to do some more research. But yeah, there's some fascinating stories out there. Again, we don't know. I mean, all the evidence out there is they hear the sounds, they see the rocks, unless you see the actual creature throwing the rocks, or you see the creature making the sounds, it's tough to put them to who knows, it could be another creature out there doing it, but that we don't even know exists. But yeah, so it's definitely interesting. Now I think the ones that get me are the multi-person daytime sightings, because how are you going to get, I think Todd Prescott was saying on how are you going to get 5 people to tell the same story if it didn't really happen?
Yeah.
Those are the ones that really get me. Yeah.
I those get me as well. I think on this side of the paranormal, when we're talking about, ghosts and just strange liminal things, oddness that's happening that is spiritual, there are plenty, more than enough stories to go around of multiple witnesses experiencing exactly the same thing, telling the exact same story. It's like, how is that not convincing to you? How is that not so compelling?
Hello, my name is Jordan Klein, and I am the host of Fireside Paranormal Podcast. If you're into ghosts, UFOs, cryptids, the unknown, then pull up a chair and join me by the fire as we hear real stories from real people. Each episode, I interview paranormal investigators, authors, experts, and legends in their field. Here at Fireside Paranormal Podcast, we have something for everyone. If you're an experienced researcher, or if you're just getting into it, we have a spot for you. We're found anywhere you listen to podcasts. So grab your friends, tune in, and remember, don't be afraid, only believe.
I've heard you talk about this a couple of times. You ask questions about it. I've seen it online. You're very into the history of Bigfoot. And I was just curious, answer this however you want, because it's not really a well-formed question here, but I was curious, what is the significance of understanding the history, knowing the history of Bigfoot to this phenomenon, to understanding it now?
I think that's a
Yeah.
better question for you.
Okay.
Yeah, because he's so obsessed, girl.
Mhm,
That's
mhm.
all he wants to talk
Oh,
about.
well, so it's going to be a multi-part, and I'll try to make a quick answer for
No,
your
no,
audience.
no.
who
Please
didn't
take
hear
your
me.
time, Tim.
I think if you go back to Native First Nation and Native American lore is probably where it starts. Every single and Kathy Strain wrote a book about this. Giants, Cannibals, and Monsters. I think the name of her book is. I should know it. Sorry, Kathy. I think that is the title. So every single tribe references a hairy creature. They have a different name for it. They all have they all reference it in their lore and their history. And some of what we hear is all the other animals that they describe. Well, some describe them as animals, some describe them as another tribe of people. And they all have a name or different name, a different theory on them. But when it comes to the animals, if you look at their history, and there's these things called pictographs that they have found in caves, and all the other animals are real animals. They're coyotes or eagles, and then there's this other thing. And so they're like, well, everything else they depict is a real creature. So, and here's this big hairy thing on two legs. So I think that's where it starts. I think from the historical standpoint is, okay, there's actually a historical reference to this from going way, it could be thousands of years for all we know.
And so just to interrupt you real quick. So that's the historical.
Yeah.
So, but if you go back to science, thousands and thousands and thousands of years ago, probably not even that long ago, because some of us still have Neanderthal DNA that will come up in a lot of these DNA tests that we're doing. There was a time where Homo sapiens coexisted with other hominids.
Right.
So it wasn't just like we were only on the earth. So, and that's just what we have fossil evidence of. And we have evolved to where we are right now. So who's to say that one of these other hominids didn't evolve into a Sasquatch that we haven't yet discovered? And when I say discovered, I mean, we don't have a live one or a dead one, but we do have other evidence. So there's a very strong possibility that in certain pockets of North America, as in other parts of the world, there are still some individuals that are still we're discovering new things all the time, new things. And like, I always bring this up a lot, but there was recently, maybe about 4 or 5 years ago, in Corsica, which is, I think it's part of France, actually. It used to be part of Italy. So it's if you're looking at Italy and you go to the left, in the Tyrrhenian Sea, there is an island called Corsica. And lore and legend has always been talking about this thing called Jatu Volpe, which basically means a wolf cat. And, there were a lot of legend about this thing existing, blah, blah, blah. Basically, it's like a big cat. So it could almost look like a domestic cat, but it's bigger and it's got like a funky kind of different tail.
Like a bobcat, maybe.
But a bobcat has no tail.
Right.
But yeah, like maybe about the size of a bobcat. So everybody's talking about, it's a tiny island, girl. Like we're talking, Corsica is not big.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, I don't even know. It might be like the size of Puerto Rico, maybe, if I had to like envision, maybe even smaller. And okay, so guess what happens? One of these things got caught in a chicken coop.
Oh.
And they got one.
Okay.
And then they were like, okay, this thing is real. This is not a legend, folklore. It's a real thing. Recently just happened in Papua New Guinea as well. Some type of pheasant that they thought was extinct. People heard them. People saw them. They sent out some biologists, set up some trail cams, boom. So these things happen all the time.
Yeah.
So who's to say, I mean, how many acres of land in North America are uninhabited? I think it's obnoxious.
I think 60% of North America is not inhabited.
I think it might even be more than that.
Yeah. So
that's where he's more into like the history of humans documenting and writing about them. And that is so important too. But there's a lot of physical evidence that shows that there were different types of hominids.
And then because the term Bigfoot wasn't coined until the 50s, and then the term Sasquatch was coined in Canada in 1929. There's newspaper articles that go back that call them different things, and so you can pull up. There's some people just focus on that, and there's the hairy man or the wild man, and there's
Yes, man.
European newspapers, from when settlers came over, from the last few hundred years. So there's documentation there, and then and then I guess the third part of the history that I always, we had the big push, I guess, in the 50s is when people really started. There were some famous researchers that really got into this. Before the Patterson-Gimlin film that we talked about earlier was filmed in 1967. It started in the 50s, and they and then it's important to understand the where it was, just so what's work's been done, how they approached it, and it really it morphed of where we are today with the subject. So I think that's why it's really important to understand the history. Whether I think what happened with a lot of the early researchers, they don't have the data we have now. They don't know what we have now. So some of the things may seem antiquated if you read some of the old historical reports, but they were only going with what they had. They didn't have the internet. They didn't have all the scientific, they didn't have drones. They didn't have trail cams. They didn't have any of that. So I think now we just know more. So I think it's just important to know, where it started, and how it got to where it is today.
Yeah, something kind of fun historical wise that I learned. I don't know if you can see it in the background.
I saw yeah. I pointed it out when we first got on.
Oh yeah. So I had never thought about this before, but that is an iconic shape there. That is, I just learned this. I just watched it on a video. That is the shape, that frame that they always cut to the Patterson-Gimlin film, where it's walking, that's got that stride, and it's swinging its arms, and it's looking at you. That iconic shape. And I just never thought about it before. I was like, oh my God, that is everywhere. I see that everywhere. I see that, and I immediately know what it is. As for the Patterson-Gimlin film, I don't think we can do this interview without talking about it a bit. Why? I have seen it. Yes, everybody has seen it. Why is that film, which, as far as I understand it, has not been debunked yet, not officially?
Right.
Why is it so convincing? What is it about that footage?
Well, I think first it's a minute long, so it's no one else has gotten any footage for that long. The history behind it. And there's still people who'll go back and forth on it, and I think even sometimes I look at it like, is that really? But so the history of it, these are two cowboys that took this film, and yes, the one Roger Patterson, that's why they were in the woods. They were filming a documentary about Bigfoot, so they were actually looking for it. But the reason they were in the woods is because there were sightings, and they had been there previously, and tracks were cast, and so they were in an area that was having reports. So the chances were more likely. The film was, again, a minute long. I think that's one of the things. And then when you look at it, I mean, some people look at it and say, "Oh, that's just a person in a suit." And there's times that I've looked at it and say, your first glance, I remember when I very first looked at it when I was a kid, I was like, oh yeah, look at that guy in the suit. But when you really get into it, number one, it's a female because there's breasts, and then there's muscle movement, and then when you look at it, when you talk to a lot of the specialists, and I think it was I guess it was Bill Munns who worked on Planet of the Apes. I think it was Bill Munns, yeah. And they had a conversation about this. So for 1967, for someone to fabricate a costume, and these are just two cowboys, so there wasn't a big production crew. The chances of them fabricating this costume and filming it with no funds or even limited funds, it's just a shot in the dark that this could be fake.
There's no way that the muscle flexing, the best thing that you can do is probably hear Dr. Jeff explain why he believes that the Patterson-Gimlin film is real.
And then he found footprints.
Right. They also found footprints after, but it's the way that it's walking. People can't walk like that.
Yeah.
We can't walk like that. They have dissected that film. There's no way in 1967 that somebody could have, we were born in the early 70s. And, we grew up with like Star Wars coming out in the latter part of the decade. And I mean, even those costumes weren't, really,
Right.
they just weren't, how are they going to get, who did the special effects? Was it Steven Spielberg or George Lucas? Who was it that did the special effects for Star Wars?
Well, that's George Lucas, right?
They're not gonna get somebody to do a Bigfoot costume 10 years before that walking through the woods. So it still remains, I think, the best documented film of an actual Bigfoot.
I mean, there's been people come out. There's definitely been some people said. One guy said he made the suit and sold it to somebody. Then there's a gentleman named Bob Hieronymus, he was friends with Bob Gimlin and Roger Patterson, and he said it was him in a suit, and he was a tall guy, and so there's definitely some skeptics out there, but it's just hard to say that. It's just a lot going on with that.
And now that we're into that,
yeah,
that discussion, because this is just something that has, like when you delve into this whole subject, other things just kind of pop up for you. The possibility that the government is trying to suppress the fact that, there's a lot of witnesses who are saying that, the government knows they exist, but for other, certain reasons, they don't want it to become known that we have an 8-foot tall bipedal species that lives in North America. And for a lot of people have different reasons for why they think that might not be something that the government wants us to know about. Some of it could be forestation. What is it? Forestation. Well, protected. Do people want to be wandering around hiking if we know that there is an 8-foot, 500-pound bipedal animal that could rip your head off in an instant?
Right.
Or what were some of the other ideas people had of why maybe the government would want to suppress this?
I mean, there's so many different. I mean, I'm sure Kristen hears them too with all the with anything when it comes to UFOs, aliens,
right,
paranormal. I think or the government. Have they been testing them? Have they been? There's just all kinds of different.
Right, but some researchers actually believe that the Sasquatch is better off being a secret, being something that people don't believe exists. Because if all of a sudden we found a dead one or a live one, everybody would be out in the woods looking for these things and taunting them, and they want to be left alone. I mean, like if you think of, even if you go back to Jane Goodall, she is the researcher who made a close contact with the silverback gorillas, and it took her a long time to gain their trust and research them and get to know them. And I don't even think that they were officially known in the area.
In that area, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, so for me, it's just incredible that we live in a country where we have something so gigantic living among us. So
I think, and a lot of times, I think people who live in more urban areas, they forget that if you walk out in the woods, there are bears that are 600 pounds, and there's mountain lions, and they're walking around free. So I think we forget how we still have some nature out there.
And you can't reason with them. So if you come across like a mountain lion and you're running down the road and all of a sudden the mama mountain lion jumps out, I'm sure we've all seen that video of that runner who's like backing up, and
he's like, no,
there's no reasoning. You can't talk your way out of that, honey, because she don't care.
That is just pure drive.
Exactly. So there's tons of, he probably ran down that road every day for God knows how long. And then all of a sudden, guess what? We live in a wild world. We live in a wild world with lots of unknown things going on.
Now, on that note, what are your guys' personal opinion about Bigfoot? What are we talking about here? Are you of the belief that it is an ape-like creature, a primate? Are you more of the mind that there is something kind of magical, interdimensional about it? We have not found a body. We don't have the bones, that kind of stuff. We don't have that hard evidence of the actual body being there. Like, what do you guys think about it?
I think we both feel the same way. Wouldn't you say?
I think so, yeah.
We're both very much on the idea that, okay, so when do we find bear bones? I think if you really look into it, I don't think we find a lot of bear bones or mountain lion bones. Tim and we have woods right behind our house, and there are times where we're walking back there every single day. Same path, walking through. There's plenty of wildlife out there. We live in southern Delaware. We don't have any large predators. I think our largest predator is coyotes, which we definitely have back there. We have finally found, like maybe after 8 years of walking back there, we finally found bones of a raccoon.
And that was a raccoon that
we had a raccoon.
It was sick
in the driveway
that showed up, and we wonder where it came from, and then it went off and
it ran into the woods, and it probably died right there. But I mean, when do you ever find bones of any animal?
True.
Yeah. I mean,
well, our cats do.
Oh my God, our cats are nightmares.
Yeah, that's a whole nother story, but
no, but seriously. So the whole finding bones or finding whatever, but I definitely think that like Dr. Jeff said, something's making these footprints, and they can tell by footprints how tall, how much it weighs, how far the gait is of this thing that's walking. And from hearing people's eyewitness stories firsthand, and we've heard people's stories firsthand who don't want to share it with the public. Because they're afraid of ridicule.
Right.
Because we're like, oh my gosh, we'd love to have you on our podcast. And they're like, no, sorry. So who does that? Okay. So I believe that these things exist. I'm open to listening to the fact that there might be a paranormal angle to it. Because I'm very open-minded, but it just doesn't make sense to me. It doesn't make sense to me. Like, UFOs are UFOs, and that's cool, and totally believe that that's a situation that we have here for sure. That UFOs, the only reason I could see UFOs and Bigfoots maybe like connecting in any way would be the fact that I have this belief, as well as Dr. Jeff, because we got this at the end of the podcast. Was that my question to Dr. Jeff?
Let's not get
my question to Dr. Jeff was, why are human beings so far more intelligent than the rest of the species of animals on this planet? Dr. Jeff said whether it's something otherworldly, whether it's divine, from God, divinity from God, or something else otherworldly, that's so here's my thought process. Maybe Bigfoot, what is kind of what we were supposed to be before aliens crossbred with them and created us. Okay, I know.
Okay, no,
I know, girl. That's out there.
A good theory. I love it.
Okay, so maybe if we got one and they did some, examination or testing or whatever, they would find that, like other primates, we have a lot of DNA that we share. So who knows if the Sasquatch is the missing link to. Maybe we would have stayed like a Sasquatch had we not interbred with aliens. Now everybody's like, whoa, Dana's like really out there. But how does that explain we're so far intelligent than any other species? So that's the only way that I go with like paranormal, or I don't know. Do we put UFOs in paranormal subject?
Well, I guess technically anything not normal is paranormal.
Oh, right. Okay. Okay.
Right.
It could be, so even Bigfoot in that sense, if it's not norm, it's I don't know. I mean, I'm same thing. I'm more biological. If something weird happens and there's evidence behind it, I'm all cool with it. It could be we do get occasionally you hear people talk about when there's Bigfoot or Sasquatch activity there, they see orbs or lights. So we do hear that some. I mean, not as much as the other types of sightings, but so hey, you know what? I'm more of a flesh and blood biological thinking, but if it is something else, hey, that's as long as we understand what's going on, it's cool to me,
All All right. God, this has just been so intriguing to talk to you guys. I really appreciate your time.
Yeah, and girl, you are so good, by the way.
Oh,
Like
thank
really,
you.
like
Thank
you're
you.
awesome.
Oh,
Yeah.
thank you. You guys as well. I'm just really enjoying your show, and I'm binge listening right now, so I'm almost done. So you guys got to make more. So here near the end, I have some final questions for you, as I told you I might, and then we'll close it up and let you guys get on with your day. So I guess just whoever wants to answer these, just a few of them for you. So first question I got.
Now look at me. She gives me
Everybody
that
looks at
look.
Tim. Yeah.
Yeah.
So there, of course, is this negative connotation to Bigfoot and those types of encounters. For instance, where I used to live in New Orleans, we had the Honey Island swamp monster. They call him a monster, and there's all these other things. Like you hear stories like the rock throwing, like there's this aggressive aspect to it. What you guys said today, the infrasound, predators use that. Is it a predator? So I'm just curious. Do you think there is any reason for us to fear?
I mean, I think if it's an animal, a primate, you always have to fear, and you got to fear humans out there.
I feel like
Yeah.
it's more like, I feel like if we have to kind of like compare a Sasquatch to something that we know and we feel familiar with, I would compare it to a silverback gorilla. Like they say that, if the male feels threatened, it'll come charging towards you, but if you cower and lower your eyes, it won't hurt you. My feeling is that they're powerful and big because they're killing large prey. They're killing deer, because obviously in order to be that big and powerful, they would probably need to be eating some meat. So I think if we respected them just like we would respect any other large omnivore, bear, like a bear as well, I don't think an attack would be something 100% that would definitely happen. I think it would only happen if it felt threatened.
Or starving.
I don't think it would eat people.
You never know.
I don't think we taste good, dude. I don't.
And you know what? I don't wonder if there's this other level to it that we should take into consideration, because from most of the stories I have heard, there is this sense of intelligence, not animal intelligence, intelligence we would understand. So I don't know, just another layer to it, something to consider. All right. Next question. Whether you are buying into it or not, just go with it here. What is the craziest theory you have ever heard?
Gosh.
The
craziest theory about Bigfoot.
Yeah, whether you love it or you're just like, oh, that is such hogwash. Craziest theory about him.
Well, there are some people who talk to them, but that's not a theory.
Right.
I mean, a theory would be that they came, I don't know. I guess a theory would be,
and this just could be my lack of understanding of quantum physics.
Right. Yeah.
And that's probably a huge thing. Is I find it hard. I do find that hard to understand that they are disappearing through portals and going to different dimensions. But again, that could just completely lie in the fact that I don't know much about it.
Me too, because what else could be doing that then? Why would that just be the only thing? Because because if it's at a different frequency and can go in and out of our dimension and still leaving physical evidence behind, what else is doing that? That might be the one that really makes it tough for us to understand.
Okay. All right. And final question for you. Asking as someone like this, for someone who is not familiar with the subject, but is curious to begin their own education, where do you recommend they start?
The
book. No.
I mean, actually, that's definitely something you want to get into for sure. But I would recommend, I think the easiest thing to do would be to start watching some documentaries. I think the best documentary that you could probably watch Wouldn't you say it would be
Sasquatch Legend Meets Science?
Yeah, and that's Dr. Jeff is in there. And also
produced by Doug Hychek, who's the publisher of the book and
also the producer of our podcast.
So.
Yeah, and Doug is the coolest dude ever. But yeah, I would definitely say start watching some documentaries. And like legit documentaries, like be careful on YouTube, because just like with anything else, not like we're not cool because we're on YouTube too, but just like you can get sucked down like a crazy rabbit hole of, like, my friend at work is like, she knows that I'm all into Bigfoot, and she's like, shows me something on TikTok. Look, Dana, he's got a dead one. I'm like, girl, that's not real, girl. No, look at it. I'm like, no, Therese, that's not real, girl. That is not real. So be careful what you're looking into. But I would definitely say it's so easy to watch a documentary. Sit on the couch one night, get some popcorn, and just start watching.
And then get some of the old books that were, from the, John Green, Ivan T. Sanderson, just there's some authors out there. Lauren Coleman has some really great books, and just to get an understanding of it, of the subject and the history of it. Because even if you don't believe it, even if you read some of these books and then go on later and don't agree with it, but it gives you a foundation, so you get an understanding. Christopher Murphy had one of the really good book. There's just a bunch of, I could go on and on and on. I got a list of them in my book.
And get Tim's book.
Because
once you get all into it, if you get Tim's book, which is really cool, because you've got all the people in here who are doing things, doing the research. So you get to know them, you get to know what they're doing, what area that they're in. And so I wouldn't necessarily, this is a good place to start, though I think you could throw it in at any point of your Bigfoot journey. But I think it's great because there's so many people doing so many things just in North America alone, not even talking about Australia and Russia and everywhere really.
Flores,
Yeah. Worldwide phenomenon. Okay. Well, where would you like to send folks to find and follow you and to buy the fabulous book?
Well, I would start with our website. If you go to the bigfootinfluencers.com, you can find our podcasts. This one will be up. I'll make sure I get this up once you air it.
So our podcast you can find on YouTube, as just to see visually, kind of like what we're doing right now. It's on the Untold Radio Network. So we are throwing out our weekly podcast on Sunday nights. Are we still doing 7 o'clock?
6:30, 7 o'clock.
6:30. We try to keep it to an hour, though it's hard. And then you can comment, and we're always in there on the commenting.
It's typically pre-recorded, but we go in there live, and we try to get our guest live so we can answer questions that way. And then on the website you can find the book. You can, if you want to support small business, there's places you can buy the book. You can go onto the bigfootinfluencers.com. And you can get the book at the International Cryptozoology Museum. You can get it at North American Bigfoot Center.
That's in Oregon. That's Cliff's Museum.
But they all have online stores.
Yep.
SasquatchTheLegend.com.
You can also find it on Amazon.
Yeah, it's on Amazon. It's on all the. If you Google search it, you can find it on any of the major Barnes and Noble, Walmart, any of the major bookstores as well.
Yep. Or you can, and you'll also see us a lot of times at some of the Bigfoot conferences that are throughout the country. Actually, in 1 month, we'll be back in Ohio. So we'll be at the Ohio Bigfoot Conference, which I think, in my opinion, is probably one of my favorite conferences. This year, Cliff will be there, Cliff Barrickman, Renee Holland from the Finding Bigfoot, Mark. Wait, is Mark going to be there? Mark Marcel? No, I thought Mark was. But a lot of great speakers, and we'll be there.
I'm actually emceeing it this year.
Tim's going to be the MC at the event.
No kidding. Oh,
I'm going to be stuck at the booth selling his book. But having a great time and chit-chatting with everybody. So that's another place where you can find us. But you can follow us on Facebook. You can follow us on Instagram. And then we're also doing like a separate YouTube channel, which is kind of like our thing that you can see here in the background, Out of the Woods. With Tim and Dana. We're building up some videos right now where I'm even doing like a little thing called Eat Like a Squatch. So I'm going to be doing like little mini episodes of cooking with ingredients that a large omnivore would probably be eating out in nature.
Okay.
So I'll be making my famous Sasquatch salad. And so
We just have so much content that we
Yeah.
can't get on our weekly episode. So
we're
gonna
just
do
going to
some
throw
bonus,
it on
throw
there.
some bonus things in. We're going to interview, hopefully we'll get you on there. I'm going to interview people in the media and podcasters and things
Sure.
like that. So
Oh
Yep.
my gosh, you guys are my heroes. You are doing so much.
Yep.
All right. Well, to take us out, would you like to leave us with any final thoughts or words of wisdom?
wisdom's tough with me because I don't know if I have any. No.
Yes, you do, silly
I just,
thing.
you know what, I would say be open-minded. If you believe in something, follow it. Rule out anything that it can't be, and don't give up on it. And
Mhm.
and we do this because we enjoy it. We
We
love it. We
do.
have fun together, and we love people. We just
Mhm.
what drives us is we're interested and fascinated with people and love learning about them and humbled by it. It's
Yep.
really cool what we do. So
Yes, I would definitely say the same thing. Keep your mind open and realize that there's so much going on outside of your little bubble.
mhm.
Mhm.
There's so much going on. There's good stuff and there's bad stuff. Maybe try to focus on the good stuff, the exciting stuff, the new adventures, the new journeys, the new discoveries. And so I would definitely say, keep your mind open.
Tim and Dana Halloran of the Bigfoot Influencers. This was so much fun, you guys. Thank you so
much fun for us too.
You were
Thank
amazing,
you.
Kristen. Thank
You were awesome, girl. You rocked it.
Thank you to Tim and Dana for joining me on the show. Just an excellent conversation. I had so much fun with you guys, and I cannot wait for next time. Please check out the links I have below to find out more about my guests, to listen to their show, and find where you can pick up a copy of their book. And of course, I have all of the links for this show included below as well, to the socials, the website, YouTube, email, Patreon. If you wish to support the Paranormal Girl podcast, I've made it very easy for you to do so. Let's connect at Paranormal Girl Pod on all socials. paranormalgirlpod@gmail.com is the email. I had to think there. And Patreon. Oh, I recently posted a video exclusively for my patrons. It's nowhere else because I wanted their thoughts and their feedback on something strange that I caught on video in my studio last week's episode. And it's not crazy spooky or anything like that, but it is weird. It's weird just. I didn't even notice it until I went to post the video, and I was like, what the heck is that? So I cut that clip out, slowed it down, and posted it for my patrons. And I have received some feedback already, always with the good info, Dave, always. And I really appreciate your thoughts as to what you thought it could have been. For anyone else who wishes to support the show in this way, I look forward to hearing your thoughts as well. That is a wrap on today's show. My guest next week has appeared live on BBC Radio Leeds, as well as Most Haunted's Yvette Fielding's podcast, Paranormal Activity, to discuss her experiences living in what is thought to be one of the most haunted houses in Leeds. She has published a story about her time there and about the decades of profound experiences and downright bizarre situations that ultimately thrust her unexpectedly into the realms of the paranormal. The book is called A True Story, and my guest is author Ann Bateson. Don't miss it. All for now. See you guys in a week. Stay safe, keep the nightlight on, and sleep with one eye open.